Okay, so I want to talk to you about leverage. And I'm here in Palm Springs at my place here, just sitting by the pool. And I was literally just thinking about this thing that keeps popping up: leverage, 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 leverage. And I can't get it out of my mind. And it goes back to a time in Nashville, Tennessee. I remember I just sold my e learning business, at least majority share in it. And I was sitting with the GM, the general manager of the business, and we were sort of just like reminiscing and thinking through it. And he's kind of going off and running it, and I'm floating away into space doing something else. And he sat me down at this like wings place or something in Nashville and said, "Dude, you're great at mastering, you're great at business, you're great, all this, but dude, I've seen you like in all areas of your life in different aspects." And he said, "The one thing that you need to just focus on and ignore everything else is leverage. You're the leverage guy." And I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, I guess. But like, I don't think I was ready to hear it at the time, but it stuck with me. And, now that I think about it, I understand that my my true skill set that I carry with me through everything that I do, whether it was like the music production journey or like preaching or something, or business or real estate or investing or relationships or whatever, the common theme or thread is this idea of leverage. So I've been pretty, I guess, curious about this, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about what leverage looks like in my life, in my business. I'll give you like a real estate example, maybe, um, more like online business examples, and just a bunch of stuff to think about. And then you can start thinking about leverage in your life, in your business. Hopefully it's helpful. So first of all, what is leverage, right? So there are many definitions, obviously. The one that I will sort of be running with is the least amount of effort needed in order to have the greatest amount of outputs, right? So you can just picture like a lever, right? There's like a triangle in the middle, a plank or something, and then you pull this lever and it pushes up, heavy object or something. And depending on where you put that lever, that triangle, the base, you can lift a certain amount, right? So, this is a very powerful image and something that's really important to understand. Okay, so a good example to understand this is, I've experienced this with real estate. If you're a real estate investor, this will be, really easy to understand. If not, then buckle up. Here's a little bit of a learning thing here. If you're going to buy $1 million home or something, you can have either $1 million cash and you buy the home for $1 million and you rent it out for 7 grand or something, and great. For $1 million, you get 7 grand a month. But if you take that $1 million and do 250,000, 250,000, 250,000, so four homes at $1 million, and you put 250,000 down, now you control $4 million worth of real estate. Which, now that you own that and control that, you see the appreciation on what you own and control, not what you put into it. Also, even after paying the mortgage and stuff, your cash flow is more than 7,000. So instead of buying cash flow with cash, you can utilize leverage. And of course, if things go down or south, like, leverage works the other way too. So I'm not saying therefore utilize all leverage everywhere you can. It's just an example, right? And so I've utilized that in my real estate journey, my growth in real estate, leveraging other properties, purchasing properties, selling them, putting them into new and bigger ones, that sort of thing, right? With the least amount of cash possible. So more importantly, like, as I'm thinking this week, where do I find leverage in my business? It just keeps popping up everywhere. So I have like maybe 5 or 6 examples of this, and maybe you can be thinking about how to apply leverage in what you're doing, right? So where do I find leverage in my business? Well, simply put, the way that I understand business is pretty simple. It's however much you can charge for however little you can fulfill. In other words, the money exchange and then the fulfillment exchange. right? So money comes in, and then what you need to do in order to fulfill on that money coming in, right? That's basically it. So when you think about business, or at least when I think about it, I've built like complex businesses before and all this, but it really comes down to, can you charge lots and lots of money for something, and can you not really do that much for it? You imagine how much of like a killer you need to be in order to get away with something like that, right? You hear these stories of people paying like $500,000 to talk with somebody, and after 8 minutes or something, that's all they really needed, because it gave them the answer, right? You hear about those all the time, and the reason why is because you're operating off of your intuitive self, right? Your true value, who you are. And so what I see is, and I tell this to our clients all the time with my business, is stop it with all the like $2,000 courses, and just get as much people as possible into your thing. And people like to leverage like a VSL, a video sales letter or something, or leverage like a YouTube channel or whatever it may be. But those are all sort of band-aids or hacks to where you can find true leverage, which is, how can you charge the most amount of money with the least amount of work? So most people make this pretty overcomplicated and over-engineered. So like with my business, I'm in the like e-learning entrepreneur space, right? And what I see all the time is people with similar businesses to me, they make it super complicated and they over-engineer it. They go, okay, we need to set up like a webinar, and then we need to set up like a VSL, and then we need to set up a book a call funnel, and then we need to create a YouTube channel, and then we need to like get a Twitter presence, and then we need to do like a down sell and a cross sell and a back sell. And I read somewhere in this book that if you like do more, that you can charge more. And what if we found your niche, or what if we found like somebody with bigger pockets, and then you can finally like utilize leverage. And it's just, I've never really liked that and never really understood it. So I guess I'll give you like an example with me. Instead, what I do is I focus on like, what am I gifted at, basically? And this requires some introspection, right? I've had plenty of people tell me this over time, and I've noticed it in the real world, is my gift is to basically like mentor people and psychoanalyze them. There's got to be a better word for that, but like psychoanalyze them and ask questions and help them ask questions to understand some true blocks in their life and business, and then also have direct application to like, therefore you should do this one thing, and then everything else unlocks. And that's my unique ability. And I tend to care like about the people that I'm talking to. And I also like calls, and I also like people, and I also like just showing up and helping people in a group setting, and I love getting on the phone with people and one-on-ones and all that stuff. Like, I love that stuff. I don't like tech. I don't like the complicated, setup of things. As you can see, I'm just sitting in my backyard here with my laptop. I couldn't be bothered with any of that stuff. But I've had transformational experiences where I sit across the table from somebody, and an hour later, they feel clear, and they know what to do, and I'm able to help them, and I see like the pain being relieved from them, right? So my gift is like mentoring and caring. So when I thought about my business, I said, okay, instead of doing all that complicated stuff, why don't I just do the thing that I'm good at? Novel idea. So, I thought that this was just to exist in like how I show up on my calls or something. But it's not. I figured, how do I only do calls and mentor people? I had to say no to content, no to funnels, no to paid ads, no to a lot of stuff. And so what I did was I just thought, okay, what are the 3 different ways of I guess businesses, especially in like the e-learning space? Well, it's like how you market, how you sell, and how you fulfill. Basically, that's it, right? So what I did was I said, well, I'm just going to show up once a week in a group online on a platform called School. And I'm just going to show up and mentor people and have people come. And that basically was my plan. Just, I'm going to I'm just going to mentor people. I'm just going to show up, and like no complicated tech, no self-liquidating offer, no ad spend, none of that. I'm just going to show up and mentor people, and I'm just going to do it for free. And I'm going to release attachment from all this, And I think that was difficult for me because I always thought, well, the value is in like your course or something, or the value is in your content, or the value is in whatever structure you have inside your thing. And I just figured that, like, forget all that. Whoever's on the other end of the phone or the screen, like, I'll just pour into them. And certainly that'll help people. And certainly that will give me ideas for how to help more people. Anyway, so I just did that, one call a week. And it basically took care of everything. Like, I just leaned into my strength and ignored everything else. I saw everybody else with, like, gamified school groups or something, or like lots of activity or lots of engagement, or some setters and closers and DM stuff and YouTube channel funneling to the school group and all this stuff. And I basically had to ignore it and go, I could do that, but that's not levered. That's not enough leverage for me. If I'm only mentoring, I'm happy. So what happened was, I would do this and people would show up, and people that don't have a business would show up, and then the next person that would jump on would have like a $1, $2, $3 million a month business, and I would just show up and help. And of course, like my bee in my bonnet was I just wanted to help, but you can imagine the ripple effect that has, right? So basically my marketing's done because people come back, they tell other people, and they say this guy can really help, and like he'll just help you. Like, just show up and he'll help. And it's not one-on-ones, it's group, so we're all learning from each other. And when it comes time for somebody to be serious about their business and they really take it to the next level and find alignment in their e-learning business or something like this, like the selling is done. Like, they're already sold. I literally already helped them. So no sales call or anything like this, no checkout page, like nothing. And then fulfilling, well, it's just more calls basically. And I did that for essentially a year. And that was like 2023, is how do I just only do calls and lean into my strengths, like nothing else. No courses, no nothing, just mentoring. And for me, that was the most leverage possible, because with, 2 hours on a Wednesday, 2 hours on a Tuesday, 2 hours, so 6 hours a week of work, it produced like a pretty substantial income for me, and it like gave results for people. And there's all this leverage because now there's like literally hundreds of hours of content that can be repurposed if I really wanted it to, right? So I'm just seeing like, wow, I didn't need to create this big course and all this stuff. So much more to be said about that, but that's one way that I've been able to find leverage in my life and business. And then ignore everything else basically. Now, moving on to another thing about leverage that I found is, instead of, I'm in the entrepreneurial space, right? So I need to understand marketing and copywriting and cash flow and all this stuff, right? What I've found is that all of the books and resources on this stuff, like copywriting books or like audio books on like money habits or anything like this, it's actually not enough leverage for me. Sure, I can learn lots and lots and lots of things from those books, but I had to think a little bit more introspectively and go, well, what's my actual background and how can I apply it to what I'm doing? And in another life, I was like on a seminary track I'm not doing that anymore. Thank God, no pun intended. And I have 200 sermons under my belt. And I know how to like psychoanalyze and help people and counsel people. And I have an oratory background and like a master's degree equivalent of like articulation and oratory performance stuff, right? So all of my notes and learnings from that world, it's way more leverage for me to ignore the new marketing book, ignore the new sales book, ignore the new whatever, and just pour into this other world that I have and treat it more like art and go, well, I have this sermon oratory background. Why don't I just write VSLs like that? Or why don't I just like engage my client communities like that? You know, and that gave me much more leverage to basically ignore all the other stuff and just lean into my experience. By the way, with each one of these points, you'll start to see that it comes more of leverage of who you are as opposed to what you do. Yeah, it was just more leverage to ignore everything else and then lean into my experience. And imagine the like marketing effects that has. Now I don't really sound like anybody else, and I stand out from everybody else, and I'm unique. And those things like have more leverage. So like energetically, what you're putting out into the world, it sounds different and it sounds unique, and it encourages people to think for themselves and like how they can find leverage, etc., etc. So, if you have some cool background or experience, but you find yourself in a new domain, you don't need to learn more about your new domain. You just need to be curious about the things that you're really good at and just think critically about how to apply them to what you're doing now, and trust that that background is going to be more leverage than, reading a marketing book or something. At least that's my experience. Okay, another one is, I have a background in selling lots and lots of courses. With the company that I started in the music production world, mastering.com, that was another thing, is like buying that domain is like a big lever. Like, you could build into that. But, instead of selling lots and lots of courses, which is what we did, and I don't actually think there was anything wrong with that, and I still think it should keep going that way. But now that I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm thinking of all the courses and stuff. It requires lots of like complex funnel systems and attracting more people instead of the right people. So I had this idea, or like at least a curiosity around, my old understanding of leverage is you have a fixed fulfillment mechanism, namely a course, a fixed marketing mechanism, namely like a VSL or something, and a fixed like sales process, namely like a sales call or whatever it may be, or fixed way to get clients, whether that's ads, organic, whatever it may be. Well, there's all the leverage in the world. What do you mean, right? So the only way to scale that is more people. So basically, I think with my skill set and my gifting, I don't think that is the best leverage for me. For me, it's about attracting the right people, not more people. So, for me, instead of going and selling like thousands and thousands of courses and pulling that lever, I'm creating some really significant, fun, interesting relationships in my business right now. I mean, some of the most incredible people in the world that I've ever met this year. I'm like, I can't believe I get to hang out with these people and that I get to help them. So what I'm focusing on now is like partnerships. Now, don't ask me what the rate or contract or agreement or whatever that is. I have no idea. But I'm much more interested in just finding the right people to partner with. And I have an experience of like selling businesses, buying, having more fun doing that, right? So instead of growing businesses, you can like buy businesses and partner with people. It's the same as the real estate example, right? Instead of just buying a house cash and saying, I got this, it's how do you get a little bit down into something that you can control, and you have control over the entire portfolio. That's what I'm excited about. So instead of selling more courses, I want to just do more partnerships. So I imagine sometime this year I'm going to be helping or reaching out to all my clients going, does anybody want to partner and like do something, kind of double down on what they're doing, and try to make it more fun, because I realize if I don't have fun, then it's not leverage. Okay, so that's one example. Two more come to mind. This is going a little bit deeper, is leverage with personal awareness. So, you can do all the right things and have the right chess moves in place and make the right moves and funnel hack your way there or whatever. What I found is that I'm not old, but as I get older, I mentioned this in a previous video, I am much more interested in like be as opposed to do or have, frankly. I found that the most leverage that I can apply to my life is by knowing thyself and understanding my lived experience and being curious about it and looking at that as useful. And yeah, just bringing awareness to every single moment of my life. Like literally, like I was swimming in the pool and like just feeling the water and feeling what I was doing and noticing what my body was doing and connecting my mind to it. It sounds very woo-woo, I get it. But slowing down and really like trying to understand myself a little bit more. And I'm seeing that if that's the case, then I'm really working on myself, not on like my business. But the biggest point of leverage is just to work on myself, which in turn pulls the lever on the business. So I've noticed this in one example. I'll give it to you a little bit more concretely. Leverage with personal awareness, okay? So one example might be like, say something goes wrong. You know, client's unhappy or something, or somebody at this residential property like breaks something or whatever, right? Like what I notice with my increasing curiosity around my personal awareness and how I act and what my feelings are and what my behavior is when I feel some things, I notice about me is that I used to fix those problems head on with a hammer. I used to just, if something happens, I look at that as a major distraction. I just need to solve it right away. What I'm instead noticing about myself through this personal awareness thing is what are the things that get me off center, and not just like remove them from my life, but how do I handle that instead of remove it or attack it or this like hammer, right? Or attack and fix it. You know, that language is very violent and disruptive, but for me, under leveraged. So I'm asking the question, well, how can I not become the person I need to be to handle that, but what do I need to do to bring awareness to who I am so that I can effortlessly handle it with freedom and excitement and enjoyment and curiosity, so that those aren't problems anymore? And what I've found, if like things go wrong, my leverage points on personal awareness are three things. It's this thing called the daily office, which I'll talk to you about, relationships, and then an aesthetic environment. It's something that I've pretty much been aware of very recently as like the levers to pull when things go wrong. So daily office, what is that? I know that if I get in the daily office every day, that I'll be more than equipped to handle life. And the daily office is essentially, again, I might lose you here, but the daily office for me, it stems from the Anglo-Catholic tradition. So like the Church of England or the Anglican Church, the Episcopalian Church, Catholic Church does this as well. Some Protestant denominations do this, but it's just a common book of prayer. And it's like Psalms and like wisdom, essentially. And so for me, when a fire goes off, like in my inbox or something, although I never get emails anymore, what I used to do is just attack it, fix it, so that I can move on. Instead, I'll let the fire burn and just do the daily office instead. And what I find is that once I go through that, I am a different person and I'm more true to who I am, so that when I approach that problem, I'm approaching it with curiosity and excitement, and I wonder what I can learn from this. And it doesn't affect me. It's not as like disabling, basically. So that's a huge point for me. The second is relationships. I notice that I'm very, very sensitive if my relationships are off. You know, like if my wife is not having a good time or is like mad at me or something, or my son, or a client's like unhappy, I'm not one to just compartmentalize it. Like I internalize that and I want to fix it right away. Like I'm a conflict resolution dude. So what I'll do is, if there's a work problem and there's a relationship problem, I won't push the relationships aside, because if I solve that work problem, then the relationship thing's going to bug me. So what I do instead is, if I have to pick, I'll pick the relationship problem over the work problem. So I'll just like work on the relationship and try to get a regular rhythm of working on that relationship and just focus on that and do everything I can to foster that relationship and make sure that they're being served and loved and they feel heard. And if that's happening with like my family, my friends, my clients, you know, then that produces better results in work and life. It makes me happier. It makes me more excited. I can think more clearly, and that's a bigger lever to pull than like I got to send out a Black Friday campaign or something to fix this like client problem. The last one in terms of like leverage with personal awareness is my aesthetic environment. Growing up, I had a fantastic home, and then like many American households, actually, my family split. So I was 14, 15 at the time, and my discipline in martial arts and my discipline in like my faith, or the discipline and structure, with the combination of a separated home, for the second half of my adolescent years, and being understanding of that and kind of growing up a little bit more quickly, those two things basically taught me that I'm extremely aware of my surroundings, which has made me more sensitive to my surroundings, right? So that, coupled with 10 years in a sound treated room doing recording, mixing, and mastering, and sitting in it, and then when somebody comes into the room, the energy changes. I've trained my ears, my body, my spirit, everything to appreciate my aesthetic environment. It's so much so where after mastering like 10,000 songs myself personally, like I'm listening to frequencies and like trying to dial it in and try to find the last 5%, 1%, 10%. My aesthetic environment's incredibly important to me, and I have to block out everything else. So, if the daily office isn't implemented in my life, if my relationships are off, and if I'm in some weird aesthetic environment that doesn't work, or is too distracting, or isn't inspiring, if I don't have a view, all these things, I found that those levers are missed opportunities for me to kind of charge life, right? So, yeah, while it might be expensive to be in Palm Springs right now or whatever, like, I don't know, it pays off, right? Or like plastering my walls in New York or something, as opposed to keeping it white. It's funny. It's like I'm not a drama queen. It's just that I'm aware of my personal awareness, right? And so the aesthetic environment is extremely important to me, and I know that I'm my best asset. So if those things are aligned, things are going to be good, and there's going to be leverage. Now, the last point of leverage here. Leverage in other people's life and business. Okay, what does this mean? Well, I've made it my goal, especially this year, is to take my business, my company, my real estate stuff, how I show up with my clients, how I market, how I sell, how I brand, everything. I've ditched a lot of my old thinking of what the business is and adopted this idea of I have a unique ability to psychoanalyze situations and people, relieve blocks, and find the unique levers in their life and business to pull in order to achieve maximum results, right? So basically, I'm realizing I can do this for myself, I can do this for others, and I can relieve pain with them, and they can find leverage in their life and business. So that's what I'm aligning myself to, is focusing on helping other people find leverage in their life and business. And what's cool about this is, if you don't do it that way, then a lot of the improvement is due, which is a lot harder. But with this leverage thing about working on yourself, that often requires the leverage points to be in the B. So it's often working on yourself and how you kind of go about life and look at your life and look at your business, and you have unique mechanical challenges in front of you. I would rather focus on these levers inside who you are in the B, so that these problems don't exist, or that you can enjoy these problems, or that you can power through them with much more leverage, right? Instead of just do this. That's a consultant, basically. I'd much rather energetically connect with people who want to focus on themselves to enjoy their life's pursuit and make more money and all that stuff. So therefore, like, wrapping this up energetically, I love working with people who are over the tactics and models, and they want to master themselves and have fun with it. So yeah, these are just some things I'm thinking about this week. And hopefully it helps you, I guess, expand your imagination on this idea of leverage. At the very least, if you have a business, why are you charging so little and doing so much? Charge the most amount for the least amount of work. In order to do that, you need to know what your true value is. In order to know what your true value is, you need to fly close to the sun with your clients and with yourself, be personally aware, and utilize these tools to move forward here and stop living in the under leveraged world. So hope that makes sense. Hope that helps. And I'll see you in the next one.